Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our public meeting on the proposed downtown development project. This morning, you will have the opportunity to hear presentations of several of the project staff team that has been working with the developer on this project. You have the agenda, and so we're going to be following that agenda fairly closely, just so that we have enough time for all of the presentations to be completed. So at this time, I will speak to you about the project goals, and then we'll move right into the economic overview. Again, I would like to welcome each of you today to this public information session on the draft project development and cooperation agreement between the City of Rocky Mount and Hunt Services. I would like to stress the word draft because we are in the beginning stages of this process and will ultimately need approval of the local government commission before it goes forward. However, we did want to be as transparent today with this project as possible. There are other presenters with us today to provide an economic overview and to discuss the job creation and possible construction of the development, as well as the pro forma. This morning, I would like to provide the reasons why this multi-million-dollar downtown development project is needed in Rocky Mount, including to aid in the revitalization of downtown Rocky Mount, position the city as a destination location, create additional parking near the Rocky Mount Event Center, contribute to the city's economic base, and build on the success of sports tourism locally and nationally. First, for many years, the Rocky Mount City Council has focused on the revitalization of the downtown area. One of the council's goals is to redevelop the central city into a destination for residential development and commercial activity through targeted investments, including the Rocky Mount Event Center, the Douglas Block, housing, and infrastructure. All these areas will be a primary focus with Hunt Services' proposed residential condos, retail space, 107-room Tier 1 hotel, parking garage, and retail space. Additionally, the event center is attracting individuals from throughout the city and the region, thanks to the tournaments, concerts, and numerous other bookings. To ensure the center's success, this agreement also includes a proposed 700-vehicle parking garage, adding to the already 5,000 spaces throughout downtown Rocky Mount within 1,500 feet of the event center. These 5,000 spaces are comprised of 2,000 public spaces and 3,000 private spaces. The Rocky Mount Event Center's success is also contingent upon new spending, which can only be achieved at the facility and in surrounding areas, often at hotels and restaurants. According to an overview provided by Sports Facilities Advisory, the event center operation will become cash flow positive by year 4. And within the combination of operational revenue and new spending into the community, sales tax collections are forecasted to exceed expenditures on debt service over the next 10 years. Thanks to an already successful sports tourism industry locally, more hotel rooms are needed in the vicinity of downtown. The Rocky Mount Sports Complex, for example, brought in over 1 million visitors since opening in 2017. The complex hosts over 30 tournaments per year, with a $5.9 million direct economic impact annually, derived primarily from restaurants and hotels. Rocky Mount has also seen an increase in its hospitality industry, with the construction of 5 to 6 hotel properties that have been built since the sports complex opened. While all of the hotels may not be a direct result of the complex, all have been influenced by the presence of the facility. And with the opening of the Rocky Mount Event Center, we expect 46,000 additional hotel room nights by year 5. We will need hotels in the downtown area to support this facility's growth. In terms of the sports tourism industry, it is the fastest growing segment of the travel industry according to the U.S. Travel Association. It is also the only segment in the travel industry to never decline in a single quarter throughout the recession. If you happen to have any questions about any proportion of my presentation or any other presentations to follow, please send your email after this meeting to downtowndevelopment@rockymountnc.gov. This meeting will also be shown later this week on City TV 19, broadcasted on Southern Link and found on YouTube. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maltoni, and good morning to everybody. Thank you. I would like to take this opportunity to share some information about the general economic condition of the Rocky Mount area, and some of this ties back into national economic statistics, but a lot of the information I'm to share with you is local in nature and is very informative and helps us understand the environment in which we are, not only in the present, but also as we move forward with this proposed project. First of all, has been mentioned by many people here locally, as we continue to recover, there is a growing need for workers in our area, and we'll show you just how significant this need for workers is and how it helps facilitate growth overall. We are experiencing here locally strong business activity in several sectors, and we have seen a noticeable pickup in business activity, which puts us in a good positive position. Our housing market is booming. We've seen a lot of success in our local housing market as a region, and there's some very good indicators in that regard. And all of this put together puts us in a position to have abundant potential for growth as a community, which helps facilitate the ability for us to also look at improving quality of life and expanding our ability to look at other developments we can, such as the event center in this proposed project. Currently, if you look at this last column here, there's about 3,200 unemployed residents here, according to the latest census of employment. And what this is basically is that it's actually equivalent, this 3,200 number is equivalent to the number of local jobs that are currently available. There's about 1,500 jobs based on information shared by the Gateway Partnership and the Chamber of Commerce, about 1,500 local jobs that are currently available that they are looking to hire, along with an anticipation of another 1,700 jobs over the next 18 months, many of these associated with many of the manufacturing projects that are currently being constructed. This emphasizes not just the need for workers in general, but also in particular for us to emphasize regional focus on skill development. And there are several initiatives underway to facilitate this, because many of these jobs are in specialized manufacturing and other particular skills where there is a need to find skilled workers. The good news is that we are also seeing stability and growth in the logistics industry. The logistics sector has continued to grow over the last couple of years. This is tied to recent and upcoming development. Manufacturing, which has been a core of Rocky Mount's economy for decades, has struggled in the past, but has started to resurge significantly, and we see, again, continued resurgence over the next 3 years with the arrival of companies like Triangle Tire, Corning, and others. So we are poised to be in a position where these numbers, which have, as we have struggled to, and as we recovered back from the recession of 2007, 2008, we will be in a position to see significant growth in the coming couple of years. Another good sign for us has been local wage activity. For 2018, local wages grew by 4% for the year, from $729 a week to about $762 per week, and that's average weekly wages for residents here in the metropolitan area. This also indicates that there are better opportunities for our area workforce. That's an indication that employers are paying more and that individuals are finding better skilled and better paying opportunities here locally. One of the challenges that we have seen has been local gross domestic product, which is heavily influenced by both manufacturing and the value of local agriculture, which of course is based on commodity prices and other considerations. So we have seen some challenges with local GDP. Our local GDP for the metropolitan region is here in the red. The numbers for 2018 will come in the fall. We anticipate that as national GDP has grown in recent years and as state GDP has also grown, we anticipate to see local GDP growth in 2018. All the indicators that we currently see in employment, wages, and other productivity activity here locally, from the standpoint of our current manufacturers such as Pfizer and Cummins, as well as other businesses that have operations here, signal that we should see positive GDP growth in 2018, as well as in beyond, with the adding of additional employers here locally. All of these indicators show us that the economy is in a good position for us locally, and that we are prepared to take on additional projects to help grow the community even further, such as the work that we are doing at the Rocky Mount Event Center and with downtown revitalization. We also, of course, want to make sure that we're looking well with respect to indicators of future activity, and particularly in the upcoming future. These indicators, the one to the left, the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, which focuses on consumer sentiment, continues to remain in a strong positive position. And in the Conference Board's leading economic indicators, which is more for your Fortune 500 corporations, both of them are still remaining in a positive environment and continue to move forward. Overall, nationally, the economy is moving in a positive direction. Some people have heard about challenges that we have in certain areas with trade or with other issues, but generally speaking, the national economy continues to grow strongly, and Rocky Mount is now in a position to start benefiting from that overall national growth. We also are seeing strong optimism in the small business sector. Small business optimism picked up significantly towards the end of 2016 and has remained in a positive position. This 100, if the index is above 100 here, it's an indication of positive optimism in the small business sector. It has grown up significantly here in the last couple of months. What's also important to see here also is that small businesses are hiring at a significant rate. And this is important because many of the jobs that are out there are in the small business sector, and we are seeing that activity as well here with small businesses hiring here locally as well. Looking regionally, the Richmond Federal Reserve prepares a projection for business activity in the North Carolina and South Carolina. It's called the Carolina Survey. And their projections for economic activity in the Carolinas remain strong. Current business activity is in a positive motion, as well as expected activity, as well as growth of employment. And that shows to us that the activity generally here in the North Carolina area, obviously that includes both entire states, but it also has an influence here in the eastern part of the state. We should also benefit from this continued positive momentum that we are seeing throughout the Carolinas. One of the things that we did very recently and worked with the Rocky Mount Area Chamber of Commerce on, and several chamber members, was do a business conditions survey where we asked a group of businesses to give us an idea of where they're standing currently and also where they're going to be standing in the next 6 months. And as you can see, based on the survey results that we received from local businesses, almost all of whom were based here inside the city of Rocky Mount, you can see all of them are anticipating strong to modest or moderate increases in the various projected areas, including sales, employment, wages, capital investment, and customer growth. There is some concern about production cost, and obviously that does lead to them charging more for their services, but for many of these companies, they have not had the opportunity to raise their prices over many years, so this is actually a positive for the opportunity to generate more revenue from their existing and future sales. All of this information indicates that our local business community is in a positive direction, and that momentum is starting to get felt here at the local level. That also results in one way we have to measure local business activity is to look at taxable sales here locally. And what we have seen, and this is based on projections, we anticipate a 5.7% increase in taxable sales for the current fiscal year compared to fiscal year 2018. Now, there's a little bit of this adjustment that is based on some changes in tax law, but that is not a significant aspect with respect to local activities. This does not include internet sales. So this is a relatively good apples to apples comparison of taxable retail activity, and what we can see is that it's continuing to grow here in our metropolitan area, and that we anticipate that growth to continue. Overall, statewide growth is occurring, and actually 5.7% is at or actually a little better than the overall statewide rate at present. Statewide rate's around 4.5%. What this does do, of course, it does contribute in general to higher sales tax revenues. Year-to-date collections are about 5.6% ahead of last year. We have collected through the months of April, so we have 2 months left to collect in the current fiscal year, which is May and June. We anticipate those end-of-year projections to be about a little under $12.4 million, which is actually a little over $400,000 more than we projected in our fiscal year 2019 budget. So in general, this, because it is directly related to sales activity, both activity that occurs here locally as well as activity that occurs statewide, is all an indication of positive economic activity here in North Carolina as well as in the Rocky Mount region. Now let's talk a little bit about housing. Overall, in the past year, and particularly in the first quarter of 2019, our local real estate market actually outperformed national and statewide indices for annual growth. The good news is we are still an affordable market compared to other parts of North Carolina. We're benefiting from that affordability, not just in existing housing, but also in new housing. New housing, which is being built here and which is planned to be built here in the Rocky Mount area, is being built in a more affordable range. Most of the homes that we're seeing here that are listed on the market for sale are under $200,000, which is a sweet spot for a lot of new and emerging home buyers, young families, first-time buyers, and others. And some are even in the 120 to 150 range. And what that has done is it's helped overall grow our local real estate market. According to the first quarter, Rocky Mount grew at 8.7%. Compared to last year. North Carolina grew 7.2, nationally 5.5. We're actually in a position to be able to provide more inventory and to provide better affordability in our housing market overall. And that does contribute overall to wealth building for homeowners, for existing homeowners that are looking to potentially sell their homes. It also contributes overall to the economic vitality of our region. And we see that as well. This information was provided by a local real estate agent. We were able to look at some information from the MLS for our region. We can already see year to date that prices have gone up about 14% inside the city. They've only gone up about 6% inside the city. And as you can see, there's not much variance between sale prices inside the city and outside the city for our metropolitan area, or overall for the metropolitan area. So we are in a good position that inside city housing, this housing here in Rocky Mount, even though it's still affordable by many people's standards, is a very active market. When I talk to real estate agents, many of them are very busy with closings and showings and trying to move. There is a supply crunch. There's not as much supply as there has been. Days on market, these numbers here of 103, 104 days on market are excellent numbers. That's mean typically homes are only just a little more than 3 months on market from the time that they're posted. That's very good, particularly with some of the challenges that there are with the mortgage industry in terms of the paperwork and such. So overall, this is looking excellent here for the Rocky Mount region. And that has helped contribute to our growth in property taxes this current year. Now, this current fiscal year, we did implement a 2.5 cent property tax increase, and that did contribute to about 3.8% growth in revenues, for about $822,000 in property tax revenues. But in actual property value growth, actual growth in property value as well as growth in collections, we actually increased that by 3.6%. We achieved 3.6% growth through that, about $776,000. So we actually saw this current year, what we were seeing this current year compared to 2018 is total growth of almost $1.6 million, or around 7.4%. Only half of that's due to property tax, to the actual property tax rate. The other half is due to increased values that occur during sales transactions or due to new construction, as well as increasing in collections. And that has helped us recover some of what we saw as losses during the revaluation period in 2017, 2018, when we saw those revaluations and adjustments and how that kind of took some value out of our property value index. We were able to start recouping some of that here in fiscal year 2019. I'll finish off. I'd like to talk a little bit about the impact currently that tourism has on the Rocky Mount economy. We have over 150,000 visitors to our sports complex every year. Many of them come for tournaments. We also remember that the sports complex, along with being a tournament facility, also is a facility that's accessible to city residents every day of the year, from the parks, the ball fields, the soccer fields, the various amenities, the disc golf. It is not just a facility that serves for tournaments, but it's also a true benefit for all residents of the Rocky Mount area. And it's also where we host all of our leagues, including the adult soccer league that starts here very soon. We also have, that of course has led tremendously with visitation. We have growth in construction, and we've seen that with our hotels. We have 4 new hotels that have been built, and we have 2 more that are under construction. That alludes back to what Ms. Maltoni said earlier. We've seen the growth in restaurants, we've seen growth in retail, we've seen growth in other service area businesses that are built and are here in large part due to the growth that we've seen with sports tourism and sports complex. And in general, this sector provides more than 3,400, almost 3,500 jobs according to 2017 numbers from the state of North Carolina, contributing more than $68.9 million in payroll per year, as well as a direct local spend of over almost $353 million. So that is a tremendous amount of local economic activity that's made possible through the tourism industry. It also generates about $9.1 million in local tax revenue. And in the last several years, we have seen more than $100 million in local investment that's tied to tourism and destination type works, including the work we've seen at Rocky Mount Mills, the new hotels and restaurants that are going along, as well as existing renovations of existing facilities. So there's just a lot to be excited about as we move forward with our economy, as well as we move forward with projects and programs such as the one we're discussing today. At this point, I will turn it over to the President and CEO of the Rocky Mount Area Chamber of Commerce, David Farris, to talk a little more about the value of this project to the community.
Thank you, Kenneth, and good morning. Before we get started, I do want to make, to sound like an attorney, I guess, a slight disclosure. The Board of Directors of the Rocky Mount Area Chamber of Commerce has not talked about the subject. Therefore, we've not taken a formal position on it. So the comments that I make do not necessarily represent the Chamber's governing body. Thank y'all for your interest. Thank you for coming in. Kenneth, that was a great presentation. You always seem to do a good job. And again, we thank you last week for your involvement with the Chamber Small Business Economic Forum. Economic development. That's what we're all about. That's what the Carolinas Gateway Partnership is. That's what the Rocky Mount Area Chamber of Commerce exists for. And this area, probably going back to the mid-'60s, maybe even a little earlier, has not experienced the kind of energy and the kind of development in 50 years, more than 50 years. To dial it back then, 2 of our local banks, People's Bank, Planters Bank, were expanding. They were both in the midst of building new facilities, one on Church Street for Planters and one on Franklin Street for People's. Tarrytown Mall, I think, was the 5th enclosed mall in the state. It was certainly the first east of Raleigh, and it was a home run. That was in the early 60s. We had several new textile companies coming into Rocky Mount or the Rocky Mount area, and we also had textile companies upfitting their general operations. Along about that time, a little pharmaceutical company named Abbott Laboratory, which is now Pfizer, home of approximately 3,200 employees, began its life in the Twin Counties. So this is something that we have needed since the late 90s, when NAFTA wiped out, during the 90s, when NAFTA wiped out our textile industry, shut down the mill. The banks merged, were bought out, and the corporate office was later moved out of Rocky Mount. We've gone through some tough times. You know, in Rocky Mount, you've heard me say this before, like the Bible, BC AD, we're BF before Floyd, AF after Floyd. And that's kind of how we mark things. Your Chamber of Commerce was affected greatly. The Chamber was flooded when it was located now where United Way is, and virtually all the records and history of the Chamber were lost, destroyed, or certainly damaged. And you know, it affected all of our lives. We had family members who lost homes, businesses were lost. Oftentimes they couldn't come back. This certainly, without question, whether you support the hotel investment or don't, this period we're living in Rocky Mount and the Twin Counties is without question offering us more opportunity than over 50 years. And I'll debate that point with anybody. The hotels, I'll make one adjustment to Ken's numbers. There are 2 under construction, with the 3rd one in the planning stages, which should break ground very, very shortly. The Rocky Mount area, and particularly Nash County, I think as Barbara will attest to, we're the 15th largest county region in the state for tourism dollars. Is that correct, Barbara? Thank you. And a lot of people, when you say that number, just kind of take a pause. You know, we don't have a beach here. We don't have the mountains here. We're certainly not the triangle that, you know, has a lot of business visitors in as well as tourists. Ours are built around the athletic complex and a lot of reunions with a mix of business in there. And it shows no signs of letting up. The event center is doing, I supported it early on, and I still support it. The need for downtown redevelopment and new development to continue to accelerate, frankly, is paramount. When the industry comes in and actually gets here, they look at your downtown. We're handicapped by one big event, and sadly that cost us. We're not a county seat. We're the largest city in the state that is not a county seat, that occupies a county, or one of the few. And of course, we're split within the 2 counties. Having a downtown courthouse makes a big difference. Right over to Nashville, right over to Wilson, go to Goldsboro, go to Greenville, go to Wilmington, go anywhere you want to. If there's a courthouse downtown, there's a different vibe. It brings people down, it houses attorneys, it houses more restaurants. Are we behind the curve in our redevelopment of downtown? That's probably a very gross understatement. We are way behind for a lot of reasons. And we can sit here and talk about those, and that isn't going to do anything. Keep looking in the rearview mirror, you're going to run into a tree. And that's a fact. The risk. I don't like debt, but sometimes debt is what you have to do to move forward. And that's a decision that the city council and the senior management of the city of Rocky Mount will make. I'm not going to make it, but that's something they have to decide what's best for the county, what's best for the city, rather. They're hired for that reason. They're elected for that reason. As I look back and think back over history, I well remember the Fayetteville Street Mall in Raleigh. The Fayetteville Street Mall was what now is Fayetteville Street, and it was paved over. There was no room for cars. And it never fulfilled the vision that the leadership in Raleigh had when they took the street up and put the mall in. They spent $10 million tearing that thing out. And I guarantee you a high percentage of the people in Raleigh, and some of us outside that paid attention to it, thought they had lost their ever-loving mind, or minds. There was no way in the world you could convince many people, and I'm not sure even the ones who made the decision, that the Fayetteville Street Mall exit and how they've developed Fayetteville Street now, excuse me, would have ever happened. It's one of the hottest spots in the state of North Carolina. Restaurants, hotels, businesses, boutiques, you name it, it's there, and it goes 7 days a week. It's amazing. Are we Raleigh? Heck no. But they thought outside the box. They created something. Now, this puts pressure on the city, because when they made that investment, they didn't make it and sit back and think, okay, everybody's going to come. They went out, and they went out hard, and they went out swinging, and they brought in business, investment, And we can do the same thing here. We absolutely can do the same thing here. I look back at Durham 10, 15 years ago. Durham was horrible, absolutely horrible. People used to say, as we were having our problems, Rocky Mount's a little Durham. Well, I hope we will remain a little Durham, because they're built out, built up, slammed, and more coming. And that's a good thing. You take their entertainment, you take their athletic complex, you take their business community. Durham's one of the hottest spots in the United States for anything. And you wouldn't be caught there at night unless you had no other choice 10 or 15 years ago. Our mill here is developed, as you know, by the same people who developed the American Tobacco Trail in Tobacco Village in Durham. They own the bulls. I don't know of any person in here that could say they have a clear vision of how our mill is developed. I don't know that anybody here can look themselves in the mirror and say, I saw those homes turning out like they did. I saw the mill building itself turning out into the powerhouse and to the lofts and the views. I just wouldn't believe it. They had a consultant come in who challenged everything they wanted to do. Everything. They said the housing, leases on the housing were $300 to $500 out of reach here. Too much money, it was destined to fail. I don't know your definition of failure. They didn't mind. They had to build additional homes plus the lofts to satisfy the demand at the price point that they set out to do all along. And it's just getting better and better and better, and they're acquiring more properties to develop. Our growth with Triangle Tire coming in with 800 out of the gate, 1,100 long-term when the second edition is done for the larger tires. Corning coming in, CSX, which is going to bring in more industry here because of the logistics, the transportation that's needed, which also creates the need for meeting space, for additional hotel space as these people come in. You have DMV. You'll have more people staying in Rocky Mount, and I don't just mean moving here, but because of the significance of DMV throughout the state. So these are reasons why we can't stop. We have to do it in a thoughtful, intelligent way. We have to present a community and a city that is desirable to not only do business in, but for those in business to be able to attract people, not just to commute to Rocky Mount and take a paycheck back to Wake Forest or Zebulon or Wendell or wherever, Garner, the great state of Cary, but to stay here in Rocky Mount and in the Twin County area. We need to keep moving forward. And the decision that the city council and the city manager and the senior staff make, they'll make it off of the information they're provided. There'll be some gut instinct in there, just like it is in any decision any of us make. I'll go back to the mill. If the Goodman family, Capital Broadcasting, had relied only on hard data and a consultant, that place wouldn't be there today. I thank you for your concern. I ask you to continue your prayers for the city leadership in Rocky Mount and the city of Rocky Mount. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Alan O'Connell. I'm from Cleveland, Ohio, Novogradac Consulting. We completed an economic impact analysis on behalf of the city for the project. And what this does is it captures sort of the additional economic benefit that's been spurred from the development, whereas Ted's going to present sort of a more accurate direct impact in terms of taxes, investment. Ours measures sort of the previously immeasurable things, such as additional jobs created and additional economic activity. So, according to our analysis, during the construction phases, 430 direct jobs will be created and 287 indirect and induced jobs. Now, just quickly, indirect jobs are sort of, for instance, the hotel, they need to buy soap, and the people who are providing the soap, that's going to be a job created, or maybe the gardener that needs to do the landscaping, that's an indirect job. And then an induced job would be all the jobs that are created directly on site. Those people have paychecks, they need services, they need to buy products, and so those create jobs. Those are induced jobs. So during the construction phases, 717 total jobs added to the local economy, and that comes out to an investment, a total financial impact of over $100 million. And then during the construction phases, the total taxes collected, this is county plus city, is $1.2 million approximately. 1/3 of that would be going directly to the city of Rocky Mount. And I just want to make a disclaimer, these numbers are actually based on a parking garage that's slightly larger, 840 spaces. So these numbers would be adjusted slightly downward, but not by that much. And we can provide updated numbers once I get back into the office. I can give the city those updated numbers and get them to you. And then during the operation years, this is sort of recurring, whereas when we looked at construction, that's going to only occur from 2019 to 2022, and it's spread out. These numbers here are every year. So these are sustained jobs. These are new jobs added to the economy every single year after 2024, once all phases are in full revenue generating capacity. And so by our estimates, there would be 195 direct jobs right on site. And then there would be an additional 127 induced and indirect jobs created from the project for a total of 322. That'll generate directly $16.1 million on site directly, with an additional $18.8 million in induced and indirect effects on the local economy. And that comes to a total of just under $35 million per year, every year from 2024 onward. And that's in 2019 dollars. So that's, not adjusted for inflation over time. And then, next slide. Do we have another slide? That's it? Well, that would be it.
Good morning. My name is Ted Cole. I'm with Davenport and Company. We serve as financial advisor to the city and have served in that capacity for a number of years. I'm going to talk through some slides today that pull a number of things together, and I'm going to call it broadly capital planning. And while we are focused here today on the downtown development project, our work also pulls in all the regular capital needs of the city general government. So vehicles, fleet, buildings and maintenance, not utilities in this discussion. That's outside of the scope of this discussion, but general government needs, and oftentimes you'll hear it called a capital improvement plan. We pull that information into our analysis. The event center is in our analysis. We went through a very similar process a few years back when the event center was being discussed, and ultimately there was a financing done to support the event center. So we're going to talk a few specifics about the development project, but keep in mind all of what we're doing is sort of broader based, looking at debt capacity, debt affordability, and general capital cash flows for the city's governmental needs. Our approach thus far on this project has been on the left, obviously just sort of summarizing the four basic components of the development. So there's a parking garage, The city has landed on the 700 space option at this point, so the smaller of the two options that we've analyzed. There's a hotel somewhere around 107 or 110 rooms. It will have a national branding to it that you would recognize. There's a residential component. At this point, the planning work anticipates 60 condo units that have some variation of two-bedroom setups. And there's a retail component of it, approximately 20,000 square feet. As we go through our process, as Alan said a moment ago, we're really focused on direct revenues and expenses with this project. So we're not looking to capture the financial impacts of the indirect activities or the induced activities that Alan spoke about. We're focused on just those direct. So we're talking about things like property tax revenue that will be recognized on the garage facility, on the hotel, the retail, and the residential. All of those, in the way that this is coming together, would be subject to property tax levy. There's occupancy tax revenue that would be generated on the hotel, and the city has working through the mechanics of all of that with Edgecombe County. There's sales tax revenue that would be recognized from both the hotel and the retail development. And in North Carolina, there's a process by which all of that retail sales gets taxed, how it gets distributed and allocated between the city, in this case, and the county. Parking garage, just to be clear, the plan at this point is that the developer will finance the parking garage, he will own it, and he will operate it. And there will be an agreement in place where net revenues of the parking garage will come to the city after the management and operating costs are accounted for. So there is a stream of revenue in our model that is derived from the parking activity. Now at the end, the city will have a lease on that parking facility that they will have to pay, and it's a 20-year lease. I'll talk about that in a moment. But at the end of that 20 years, the ownership of the parking facility reverts to the city. And then finally, there's a hotel ground rent concept that is in the draft development agreement, whereby the hotel owner, the developer, will be paying ground rent to the city for the benefit of building the hotel on city property. Okay? Our approach on the left-hand side, as I said, there will be a parking garage lease. That will be a payment from the city to the developer. This is specifically what the local government commission needs to approve. And it will really look and act a lot like debt. It's going to be called a lease. It will be drafted as a lease. It will have a 20-year term at this point, level monthly payments, and it will have a taxable and a tax-exempt component, or the equivalent thereof. That is something that we work through with the bond attorneys and the local government commission. And at the end of the day, the agreement states that the lease will be based on the city's borrowing rate at the time that the lease agreement is entered into. So it stands to reason that the city of Rocky Mount can borrow at a more advantageous rate than a private entity. And in this case, we wanted to take advantage of that. So rather than setting the lease payments on a private entity borrowing rate, we're going to set the lease payments on what the city's borrowing rate would be had the city actually gone out and financed it. So we're sort of preserving that benefit of getting a municipal AA rated borrowing rate in a lease agreement, which is not typical. Normally, the lease agreement would be based on the capital cost of the private entity or the lessor. So we have drilled down very specifically on the downtown development project by itself and analyzed all of those cash flows. And then we have pulled it in, and I'm talking off the right-hand side of this page, we've pulled it into our broader model, which again pulls in all of the city's existing tax-supported debt, all of the debt that is anticipated to be needed in the future years to fund the city's capital program. So again, things like vehicles, things like building improvements, maintenance projects. We've pulled all of that in, the pay-as-you-go capital that the city funds every year from its operating budget. And then we pull in this event center as well as the downtown development project. And what I'm going to show you here in a moment is going to sort of be the net result of that. But a couple of quick concepts. We are making sure that in doing this lease, which does act and look a lot like debt, that we are in compliance with the city's adopted debt policies. And we talk about debt capacity, that is the city's ability to go out and issue debt and be able to do so in a way that's consistent with a highly rated local government, in a way that is in compliance with three particular debt policies. And you'll see, cut to the chase, that this current approach with the 700 space garage is consistent, that lease is consistent with the city's debt policies. And then the debt affordability. We want to make sure we understand how are we going to pay for this. And granted, all of our work is based on assumptions, right? Operating pro formas of the event center, operating pro formas of the downtown development project, funding the future CIP that the city has developed. I mean, we are certainly looking at and relying on projections, but we believe that those are reasonable projections at this point. We may outperform, we may underperform at times, but we believe we have a very solid base case based on all of the information we've gathered from the various project consultants. And we are going to show you here in a moment, I think it's the next slide, sort of the net effect of pulling this downtown development project into our capital model. This has been truncated quite a bit. There's a more detailed cash flow model that we work with, but as you work your way across, we are gathering all of those cash flows related to debt, future debt, pay-as-you-go capital, the event center, and the downtown development project. And what we've identified is a shortfall in the range of about $355,000 out in fiscal year 2021. And the city is looking at various options on how they'll fund that. And has determined that that is a reasonable contribution here in the near term to help make our model cash flow year over year. And again, this is something that we track at least annually. And so as things are evolving with the event center and the downtown project, we'll have an opportunity to revisit this and make sure we know how we're performing relative to these projections. This last slide just bears out for you those three debt policies that we spoke about. The policy on the upper left, there's a red line. We don't want those green bars to fall below the red line. They do not, so we're saying that we can do this in compliance with that policy. Upper right, we don't want the bars to go above the red line. They're well below it. With about 5% of cushion that's on debt service to expenditures. And then finally, in the lower left, debt as a percent of assessed value. We don't want those bars to go above the red line, they're below it. And again, all of these graphs pull in not only existing debt, but proposed debt to support the CIP and the downtown project.
Good morning. My name is David Hunt, CEO of Hunt Services, Inc. I'm out of Jackson, Tennessee. I'm a Hilton Marriott developer, and I'm both humbled and honored to be in this wonderful community again. As I sat here today and listened to David Farris, to city manager, about this wonderful community and the other reports, why would anyone not want to invest in Rocky Mountain, North Carolina? I mean, I asked my friends when I met with Marriott to get this brand approved. They said, why downtown? All the activity is out by the interstate. Why are you looking to go downtown? And I asked my friend who's the vice president of Marriott, I said, have you been to downtown Rocky Mountain? Have you seen the event center? Have you seen the potential synergy and opportunity this affords a hotel development and or other activity that could be brought into this market, which is frankly what I do? He said, no, of course not. When we go to Rocky Mountain and visit, we stop where? At the interstate. And so as I have developed my portfolio of properties throughout the Southeast, I always look at a holistic way of looking at property and locations, and how I select where we go, how we go. And I look at the synergies that's not only there now, but potentially what it could be. And what I saw when I came to Rocky Mount was a city that's done and completed an absolutely amazing event center that has so much opportunity for expansion and growth. Also, I saw a city that was thinking ahead, and they put in all the infrastructure needed to build on that backbone to make it a great destination location. And that's what I saw when I came here 3 years ago, and that's what I see today. And I understand no one likes debt, but if I raised up a $100 bill here today and said, okay, you give me $18 and I give you back the $100, I guarantee you everyone in this room is gonna say, you know what, I'll take that deal, as long as that money's not counterfeit, right? And and essentially, that's what the offer I'm proposing to the city. I'm offering to give you a $100 million investment in revenue of impact, which you invest in $18. $18 is what I'm really offering the city. And please understand, and these guys did a great job putting these numbers together, but as I read through those numbers yesterday and thought about this last night, for a developer, for a simple guy like myself, that's how I evaluate. That's what I look at. What's the impact? What's the investment to the community? Now, flip side is I need to make sure that my investment bode well for my family and my business. And if I didn't believe in Rocky Mount, if I didn't believe in this investment, believe me, my friends, I would have made one trip here and I never would have come back. I've come every time that I've been asked to come. I've met with all the different committees. And the good thing about it is, folks, I get asked to go to communities all over the Southeast to talk to people about this very type of endeavor. And when you got all the commotion that I felt here a couple times I came, I believe in Rocky Mount, otherwise I wouldn't be back. I just know that once this project is built and once people see the synergy and the benefit of it, along with all the other great things that David Farris and Rochelle spoke about, the city manager spoke about going on in this community, this is going to be simply a start. There's so much more potential that we're not even touching upon. And my hope would be that other entrepreneurs in the community and from without the community will see that the hotel is doing 70, 80, 90% occupancy, doing a daily rate that's very competitive without on the interstate. And they too will want to invest in downtown Rocky Mount, because at the end of the day, that's really what capitalism is. Capitalism always follows success. And I am an unabetted capitalist. If I did not think I could make money, if I did not think this project would be successful, I would not be investing in downtown Rocky Mount. But I believe that this is simply the start. And I believe in all those impact studies that was done at $100 million, I believe that's conservative. And I think they would agree it's very conservative. I think the housing development downtown is just all I'm doing is scratching the surface. All I'm doing is priming the pump to show that it can be successful. And I think once people start seeing success, my friends, capitalism, money would always follow making more money. That's the nature of our economy. That's why America's the greatest nation on earth. That's why I'm humbled and honored to be part of Rocky Mount and the potential that Rocky Mount offers. And I just want to thank you for the opportunity, the city manager, the city council, all those that supported the project. Those of you that didn't, let's work together and let's make it successful. Not for just myself, not for just the people that supported it, for the entire community. Thank you and God bless you.
Okay, thank you so much to all of the presenters. This concludes the public presentation of the project. I'd like to remind everyone that you will be able to find these documents on the city's website, the main homepage, so that you'll have an opportunity to pull those down and really review them at your leisure. Also want to remind you that if you have questions at all, if you would email those questions to downtowndevelopment@rockymountnc.gov. This gives us an opportunity to keep fresh the questions that are coming in, and also to provide responses so that everyone can see what people are asking about and what our response is to it. This is a very exciting project. I can assure you that it has many, 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 many moving pieces, But thankfully, we are well on our way, I think. We started in earnest back in August of 2017 when this was really a vision. And we still have a ways to go. And there are a lot of people that are working behind the scenes on this. Our finance director, Amy Staten, who didn't have a speaking part today, she begged me not to. But I know how hard she's been working on this. But Bridget Chisholm of Chisholm Consulting and and her team as well. So there are a lot of people that are working very hard to make this a reality. If we didn't believe in this project, I will tell you that we would not be standing here today. We think it has a great chance for revitalizing the downtown, really putting Rocky Mount on the larger map, to bring a Tier 1 hotel here to our downtown says a lot. If you don't think that Rocky Mount is worth investing in, you have to ask yourself, would a Marriott and a Hilton really risk its brand to come to a community and to come to a downtown if they didn't think they could be successful here? And we're very fortunate that Mr. Hunt and his team is really interested in coming to Rocky Mount. I'm sure that he could have said even more about his plans for local entrepreneurship and the like. So there's much more that could have been said this morning, but we wanted to at least at this point in this process share this with the public. So thank you all again for your time this morning. Remember, if you have questions, please just email us and we will be sure to send prompt responses. Thank you again.